On this video today, we're going to be doing some BMW E90 seats. We're going to be dyeing them from tan to red. And the first step we're going to be doing is we're going to be cleaning the actual leather. We're going to be using this Scotch-Brite pad and glass cleaner to make sure that all the contaminants and every bit of dirt and grease and any kind of waxes or anything that's on top of there, we want to make sure that everything is scrubbed off completely and it's down to the bare leather. Anything that's sitting on top of the leather is going to make it a very big problem for the leather to sink down inside and get down in there and stay down in there. You want to make sure that nothing's on top. That is the biggest problem that you're going to have. It will not adhere to the leather or sink into the leather. We're going to scrub it really hard, and you can see all the dirt coming out of it. It definitely is a humongous problem to have any kind of dirt or any kind of contaminants on top of the leather. This is the cleaner that we're going to be using, which is the dynamic cleaner. You want to spray it on lightly and make sure that you just wipe it on and wipe it off after you use the glass cleaner and the Scotch-Brite pad. You can use like a microfiber or terry cloth, basically just to wipe off any extra grease or wax or contaminants that are on top of the leather. You want to make sure it's 100% clean before you even attempt to do the automotive leather dye. It will also make the leather feel really soft and ready for the dye to sink in. You also want to tape up all the spots where you do not want the dye to go to. It's much easier, or you're going to have a mess on everything that you don't want the dye to be put on. This is the automotive leather dye we're going to be using, which is the Indianapolis Red. And this is a pretty decent amount that will cover pretty much about half the interior. And these are the pads that we use. You want to make sure that you use the sponge style like these. You do not want to use the ones that are porous. If they are porous or they have like the holes in them like a regular sponge, they seem to want to crumble and get stuff all over the seats. You definitely want to make sure it looks like the soft sponge style, not the ones that look more like an actual sponge from the ocean that has porous parts in it and things like that, because they want to crumble and fall apart and get all over your seats. You do not want that. The process you want to do is you want to push and kind of dab into the leather. You want to make sure that it's going into the leather, not sitting on top of it. That is the biggest problem that most people have with this. You want to make sure, sometimes you want to slide it, sometimes you want to push and dab. You just want to make sure that the leather is sinking, or the actual dye is sinking into the leather. You do not want it to sit on top of it. You also do not want to put it on too heavy. Just make sure you do more coats than you do put it on heavy. The more heavy you put it on, the worse it's going to look. Also, the adhesion is not going to be as good if you put it on more thick than light. This is after one coat. We're going to take the heat gun just to heat up the area, only because it's extremely cold in this garage. Is around 25-30 degrees outside, maybe 50-55 inside this garage. So we want to make sure that the area that's around the piece that we're applying the leather to, we want to make sure that it's warmed up so that the leather dye will actually dry correctly. You don't want to leave the heat in one spot or try to like force it to dry faster with the heat gun by putting it on there extremely long, because that's just going to cause more problems in the long run, because it's not doing it how it's supposed to do it. It is definitely a chemical reaction, so you do not want to try to force it. This is one coat. We actually let it dry after we hit it with the heat gun. And that's one coat. You do not want to make it look any more red or any more thick than what this is. We're going to show you a little bit more with doing 2 to 3 steps. You want to make sure you want to shake up your bottle every single time so that none of the sediment sitting at the bottom or that it's more liquidy at the top. You want to make sure that it's super even throughout the bottle so that way when you put it onto the leather, it doesn't get blotchy or it doesn't look completely uniform across all the parts. definitely want to make sure that you dab and push as hard as you possibly can to get it into the leather. That makes it kind of difficult, because that's why I have it sitting on these pieces, because if you just sit there and just wipe it on like you're just wiping, you know, a paper towel on something to clean it off, it's never going to sink down into leather. You want to make sure you want to push it down into the leather, not forcefully enough to where it'll break it, but where you want to push it into there to where it actually sinks down into the leather. That's almost the most important part. And you can see how we, you know, let some get into the bottle and then just put it on there. You don't want to over soak it and have it dripping off and then it's getting on everything. This is a very meticulous process that takes a lot of time. You do not want to rush it. You do not want to do too many coats that are super thick, because 5 coats are not going to look as good as if you do 10 coats. This is around 3 coats of the red on these 2 pieces here. These are the back seat pieces. And this other piece right here, we have about 4 coats on. That's the actual back seat. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between the two, but you're gonna want to do around 10 to 11, maybe 12 coats to get full coverage. You still will notice some of the tan coming through, but it will go away once you get over 10 to 11 coats. And this is what the leather looks like completed after about 12 coats we put on here. It's just like a whole new interior. Most people can't even tell that this interior was actually leather dyed.